All right, everybody. Want to welcome everyone to this month's North Central Climate Collaborative webinar. My name is Hans Schmitz with the Collaborative and Purdue Extension, sitting in a conference room in Southern Illinois. So if you hear any background noise, I will try to mute myself and keep muted. In the meantime, I did want to mention that you do not have the ability to unmute yourself. We're anticipating quite a few more to join us today. So if you do have any questions, feel free to enter those into the chat, and we will make sure that all of your questions get answered in a timely fashion. So do want to mention this meeting is being recorded, and there will be a brief poll that will pop up when Melissa finishes her talk as we begin to take questions afterwards. So please do fill that out when you see it. The snacks and restrooms are where you last left them. This is an extension meeting, but it's also a Zoom meeting. And with that, I want to introduce Melissa Widhalm with the Midwestern Regional Climate Center. Melissa is the only individual since 2020 that has a repeat presenter that is a repeat presenter on these NC3 webinars. So second time back, if we make it to 5, we got to give you a jacket, right? And with that, I'll let Melissa go ahead and get started. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you, Hans, and thank you for inviting me back. That's exciting. I'll go ahead and share my screen. Hopefully, we'll do this smoothly. All right. I'm getting a head nod from Hans. So it looks like we're good to go. All right. So just jumping right in. Hello, everyone. I'm Melissa Widhalm. I am the Associate Director and Regional Climatologist with the Midwestern Regional Climate Center. I am located out of Purdue University. And my background is meteorology, climatology, science communication. I've worked for almost 20 years in the climate services field, doing everything from drought impact related work to building climate tools for agricultural production on USDA funded grants to looking at climate change impacts in Indiana and throughout the Midwest. And now for the last couple of years being here with the Midwestern Regional Climate Center. So if you are unfamiliar with our center, we are one of 6 centers that are funded by the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration to provide high quality data and tools and maps and resources throughout the US. And so we focus on the 9-state Midwestern region, which you can see there in the logo, goes from Minnesota to Missouri over to Ohio and kind of everything in between. But a lot of our products are applicable outside of our 9-state region, as we'll show you a little bit later. And so we really pride ourselves on trying to have tools that help you make decisions. We want to, this is all your data. This is all the, weather information, climate information that your tax dollars have paid for with our weather observations. And so we want to try to make tools that are useful to you and that help you with a variety of decisions and planning and information that you're looking for. So we were located at the University of Illinois for the better part of 40 years since the start of the Regional Climate Center program. And then the center moved over to Purdue University in 2021. And so I've been in this role since we've moved. And during that time, we've grown quite a bit. So when I was last invited to join this webinar, there were maybe just 3 or 4 of us on this screen. But now we've expanded. We have a programming staff that are, developers that are working to build these climate tools. We have climatologists working more on the front end, like myself, to engage with stakeholder groups and user groups and kind of interface with our programmers to make sure that we're creating useful information. And we recently just hired a software engineer, and just 1 week from now, we'll have a GIS specialist joining our staff. So we've been growing, which means we are excited to continue delivering tools. And we always want to hear your feedback. And, you'll hear me say that all throughout the webinar, that if there's ever anything that you say, oh, it would be a great idea to have a product that does something, be in touch. We want to know. We're always looking to make improvements and bring you the best information we can. So I would like to get a little bit of perspective here today just on where everybody is at, where they're coming from. I'm going to kick over to a different screen here. If you're not familiar with Mentimeter, it's just a software for helping us engage a little bit more. I clicked on the wrong link though. Engage a little bit more, be a little bit more interactive. And so I'm going to put up a question here for us all to look at. There we go. So if you want to just go either on your phone or your computer to menti.com and use the code 7390149, you'll see it right there on the screen. And you can click on the map to answer the question, where are you joining us from? Where are you joining us today? You can also pop open the chat and tell us, what is your temperature right now? It's 71 here in West Lafayette, Indiana, where I'm joining you today. And it's beautiful. I know I used to live out in eastern Nebraska, and I know they're getting quite warm as well today. And so I would love to know, if you want to stick it in the chat, what's your temperature right now? But please click on the map. Let us know where you're joining us from. That'll help me as we go on and as we have products that are applicable outside of our region to make sure to point those out. So we'll just pause as we're watching all of these come in. I'm seeing quite a few from our traditional Midwestern 9-state region, but certainly quite a few dots popping up from colleagues and interests across the region. So that's great too. Let's see, I'll look in the chat here if anybody's, 50 in Duluth, that is fantastic. Unless you're, really missing winter, it's a fantastic day to get out there and get some sunshine, hopefully. 61 in Southwest Wisconsin, 59 in Northern Illinois. So, gosh, some mid 70s in Kansas. Hello, Lincoln, 80 degrees. You might be our winner so far if we're calling the winner the highest temperature, which, that's subjective. Great. So thank you all for participating in this question, just giving us an idea of who's joining us and from where they're located. You can continue answering this question, but we're going to go on to one more question. 58 in Chicago, maybe you'll break 60. We'll see. Let's see here. Every time I click on something, it makes a funny noise at me. Let's see if I can actually advance this. There we go. All right, so now I'm wondering, you can, again, keep adding your location to the map. Feel free to keep adding your temperature in the chat just so we can all be jealous of one another's regions. I want to know, though, what is your familiarity with the Midwestern Regional Climate Center? You can either say you use our products regularly, maybe you've done something occasionally. That could be just, I've been to your site, but I haven't really poked around, or, I've heard about you, but I don't really know anything about you. Or like, you're new to me and I have no idea what you do or why you exist. So, well, this is good. It looks like quite a few people who have answered are in the I've never used your products, which is great because we have some products that hopefully you'll find interesting, and we'll run through those today. And if you use our products occasionally or regularly, I think you'll still be able to get a lot out of this as well. Over the last 12 months, we've done quite a bit of work launching new products, adding features to old products. And like I said, there's always a way to improve. And so we want to continue growing, and doing webinars like this and having the ability to share our information in a forum like this is really helpful to us. And so, again, I'm really appreciative to be able to be here today. All right, so you're welcome to continue filling in the Mentimeter polls, but I'm going to go ahead and get back to our scheduled presentation. And let's see if I can do this right. Yes, there we go. So like I said, whether you are familiar with our tools or you're new to our tools or somewhere in between, we feel like we have something for everybody. Our products range from, casual users to really sophisticated users. We have information that's more just a general information, all the way down to things that are very decision specific. And we also span a lot of time periods. And so we are really an operational center, bringing in climate data in real time, archiving data from the last 150 years, and trying to build tools that look at that historical past, that sort of real-time snapshot, and also where we have the opportunity integrate in short-term forecasts to put those into perspective as well. And again, you'll hear me say this over and over, we're always seeking feedback. We always want to make improvements. And so reaching out to the Midwestern Regional Climate Center, to me, to our general email address, which I'll share with you later, all of those are great ways to share with us what you need and what you're looking for. So today, just a quick rundown of what I want to cover. I'm going to give a brief tour of our website, just the high level information on where to find things. When we moved from Illinois to Purdue, we retained the same website for about a year and a half. And then last July, we launched a brand new website that has new navigation. It has a new organization. We have updated content. And so I want to just give a quick run through in case you had seen the old site, then you would be better oriented to what we have today. And if you've never saw the old site, great. The new site is new to you, whether it's because we changed or you've never been here. So that works out. I have a few tools that I just want to do a run through, sort of a high level run through. We have so many tools that we can't go through today. So we'll just touch on some of the newer ones. And then I'll just share briefly a couple of things that are on the horizon for us for this upcoming year. So let's go ahead, and rather than showing you a bunch of screenshots, I will just navigate over to our website. So our website is mrcc.purdue.edu, and that'll get you to our homepage. If I can share. So here we are. Hopefully you're viewing our homepage. We try to keep this pretty up to date on our homepage, and what you'll always find is a link to Climate, which is our self-service data portal. That's where you're going to find station level information, aggregated mapping information. I could do an entire webinar on Climate. That's probably not in the plans for today. But I just want you to know our two most popular products are probably our self-service data portal and also our Midwest Climate Watch, which is where you can find ready to view maps that are just really easily viewable, right? So if you want to see regional temperatures for the last 7 days, you don't have to go in and make a bunch of selections. You just click the map, you sort of scroll across it, and voila, you get a pretty good snapshot of this last week or this last season. So I encourage you to check those two out. This third box over here, we typically reserve for any new announcements that we have. And just about a week and a half ago, we launched this custom chilling hours tool. So that's why it's featured right here up front. And we'll go through that here. That's one of the tools I will feature for you just in a little bit. As you scroll down on the homepage, you'll find quick links to some of our most popular seasonal tools. And then we always keep some highlighted products down further on the page. And so today we'll go through our soil temperature tool just briefly as well. You can find information about the upcoming solar eclipse. That's a lot of people are asking about that. I know it's not traditionally tornado season, but if you were living in southern Wisconsin a few weeks ago, you might want to know, gosh, have we ever gotten tornadoes in southern Wisconsin? Our tornado tracks tool is a great way to dig into those types of questions. So lots of featured products, and we swap these out pretty regularly just to keep it fresh. In terms of some other key points that you might want to be aware of, under the About Us page, the About Us tab, if you click on Contact Us, this is where you can find our email address, our phone number, and also some forms to submit questions online. So if you just have a general question, if you need data, if something broke, right? Because we're an operational center, we're doing things all the time. Every once in a while, things break. It happens. So if you ever need to report a breakage or ask a question or get in touch with somebody for data, this is your most efficient way to do it. Last year, when we switched from our old website to our new website, we also implemented this this system that, brings in more of a ticketing, like you would have with IT, a ticketing system. So then your requests get immediately routed to the right person who can more efficiently answer your question. So if you ever want to reach out to us, there are lots of options: phone, email, online, and we do have somebody staffing these requests around the clock. Please give us a day or two to respond at times, but we do check regularly. You can find some other interesting content about us, some of our background information. I won't go through all of those, but you can just see here what types of information you'll find as you go through our site navigation. A lot of the tools and resources that I will show you today and things that you might look for would most likely be under our monitoring section or our tools section. So for example, on our monitoring section, we have some real-time tools like our AUSSI, the Accumulated Winter Season Severity Index, which was featured on our homepage, but it lives here in our navigation under real-time monitoring year-round. So anything that's kind of updating in real time that you might want to find, you're most likely will find it here in this list of tools or on our special topics page. Now, before I go over to tools, I do want to point out, we have a section called Climate Summaries. A lot of people don't know we have this. We had it on our old website, but it was outdated. We've now updated it. And so each week, we have somebody who actually goes through and writes a summary for the climate conditions in the region. They're complete with, easy access to graphics and, sections about the temperature, the precipitation, whatever's relevant for that time period. And we try to update this every week so that you can see a weekly summary. And these summaries actually go back, if I just sort this here, oldest to newest, these weekly summaries go all the way back to October of 2000. So what an incredible resource that is. If you're looking for context for what's going on in the region or interesting information in an already summarized way, this is a great place to find it. We do the same thing for the monthly reports. We also have quarterly reports that are a little bit more visually appealing and written in a more succinct way. It's just a 2-page version, and we partner with a lot of folks across the region. You can see the partners list on each of those documents. But again, this is a resource that goes back well over a decade. We have all of them archived here. And this was a feature, this new database is something that is now operational as of us launching our new website earlier this year. So I encourage you to check it out, constantly updating, lots of fresh information. And people just don't know it's there. So I wanted to make sure you knew about it. If we head over to tools, climatologies is probably where you're going to go to find a lot of the tools that you might be looking for. And a couple of the tools we'll talk about today are soil temperature climatology and our freeze date tool that we'll get into here momentarily. Those are under climatologies. And so you might say, well, you have tools here under monitoring, you have tools here under tools. What's going on here? It's really about time scale, right? So tools that are more climatological, that aren't necessarily tracking real-time information are what you're going to find here. And we try not to be repetitive in the site navigation. So some things like our ag climate tools, where yes, you do have a monitoring component, but also a historical component, had to go somewhere. Last thing I want to point out before we move off of this tutorial here, under resources, you will find our newsletters. These are updated quarterly. And at the end of this presentation here today, I do have a link to, you'll see this link again to where you can sign up for these quarterly newsletters to get them sent straight to your inbox. This is probably the best, most efficient way to stay up to date with all the new features and tools and activities that we have going on in the center. They're fairly short. I have to write them. So we try to keep them pretty skimmable. And again, these go back quite a ways as well. Now, if you are a keen observer, you probably noticed up in the top right corner, the ability to log in and register for our site. This is something we're building towards in the future. You're certainly welcome to register for our site or log in. It won't change your functionality right now, but what we're doing is we're enabling ourselves to give you a more customized experience in the future. And so what I would love is one day in the future, when you open up your Climate tool, rather than just getting a generic view, you maybe have a customized dashboard, right? So moving our website from the old system to the new system, having the site login, that's all a step towards that direction, towards giving you a more customized experience. So we're not fully there yet, but the bones are there, and we're gonna build from that. All right, so that was sort of the rapid tour of our website. I'm gonna go back to the presentation now. We'll run through a few tools, and then we can open it up for questions. I can always go back if there are additional questions that you have on anything that you saw during that really, really, really fast tutorial. All right. So hopefully you're seeing the right thing again. I want to start out with a quick overview of our freeze date tool. So I mentioned this when I was on our website, but I didn't really talk about what it was. So our freeze date tool is an interactive product that lets you look at the first and last freeze dates going back from 1950 to 2023, as well as the length of the growing season. And you can look at climatologies and trends. And so I'll dig into this tool a little bit more, but some important information. These are county level gridded data sets. And so we had the goal when we were building this tool in partnership with the USDA Midwest Climate Hub, we wanted a product that had good regional coverage and good temporal coverage over time. If we use just station data, we're going to be limited by individual points, and you're going to have large gaps where, that information is missing. Something like temperature, which is pretty continuous across space and time, right? We're not talking about something like precipitation where 5 miles from here, maybe they got no rain, but I got rain. Temperature is not like that, right? So we feel a little bit more comfortable working with this gridded data set that sort of uses a computer model to fill in that information driven by observations that we have. So that's why we went with this gridded data set. It's really not intended to, be used to declare a record earliest or a record latest freeze or something like that. It's a little bit broader. It's meant to give you more of that historical perspective, and just knowing that these are data coming from a computer grid as driven by observations, but not all observations themselves. So let's see. There's a pretty big lag from when I hit the button to when it appears. So it's county level data. Like I said before, you can look at first freeze of the fall, last freeze of the spring, the length of the growing season. You can look at these variables as an average, or you can sort them to look at the earliest or the latest occurrences. And we have the ability to look at trends over time. Now, my favorite part of this tool is that you can customize the freeze temperature threshold that you're interested in. For agricultural applications, if we say a freeze, sometimes a 28-degree freeze is what we're really interested in. Sometimes it's 40. Maybe it doesn't get all the way down to freezing, but we have some sensitivities when we start to get into those lower near freezing ranges. Maybe, you have something that is resistant or hardy really down to 20 degrees. We wanted to give people the ability to look at these dates and these trends for a whole variety of temperatures. So that was pretty fun. And we also wanted the ability to more seamlessly move from a regional picture really down to a localized scale. So that was really what we were trying to accomplish with this tool, to really give people a smooth experience answering questions related to all of these things here, with differences in location and differences in time of year that we're looking at freeze and temperature. So a little bit closer look at our map. When you go to the tool, this would be what you could see. Every map on the top left corner will give you information on exactly what you're looking for or what you're looking at. So here it is the average first fall 32 degrees freeze date. If you hover over any point as you're scrolling around the image, you're going to get a little pop-up tool that gives you a snapshot of the location and what is that variable that you're looking at there on the map. Now, you might I'm going to actually go to this one. Here on this box on the right-hand side, that's where you're going to control your map. That's where you're going to be able to say, well, I don't want a 32-degree freeze. I want to look at a 28-degree freeze. Or I don't want to just look at the average. I want to look at what's the latest first fall freeze we have during this 1950 to 2023 time window. So over on the right-hand panel, and you'll see this for a lot of the tools we talk about, that right-hand panel is where you control the specifics of what you're viewing on the main part of the screen. For the freeze date tool, up top, these gray boxes are all buttons. So right now we're looking at the first fall freeze date map. You can see it's a little bit darker gray, but you can switch over to, for instance, here, we're looking at the last spring freeze trend map, okay? So you can look at the dates that something happens, or you can look at the trend. So when I say trend, I'm talking about what are the number of days per decade that this variable is changing. If it's kind of in this middle color, that means there's really not much of a change. If it's this warmer color, that means that spring freeze is happening earlier in the year, 5 days, up to 5 days earlier per decade. These blue colors are up to 5 days later per decade. And some people say, well, how significant is that? Is this a statistically significant trend? Is it just sort of an upward trend that's, you're not sure if it's noise or if it's, really driven by a fundamental change? We give you the ability to view that as well. Right here on the side, you can say hide non-significant trends. Yes. And now the map filters out and you're just looking at locations that are showing a statistically significant trend over time from 1950 to 2023 in this case, spring freeze variable. So another cool thing on this product is if you click on any location at any point on any of the maps, you will now zoom into that location and you have a whole nother set of tools that you can view. You can go back to the map here in the top left, or you can view the individual station information. So again, in the top left, you're going to see what you're looking at. So here I'm looking at first fall freeze dates and the location. Over on the, here in the middle, what I'm showing, each column is associated with a different degree. So here is first column. This might be a little hard to see. It's a little easier when it's interactive and you can zoom in. 20 degrees, 25 degrees, 28 degrees, 32 degrees. Each dot is representing a date in a year that first freeze happened and across time, right? So here you can see on the bottom, 1950, 1960, 1970. If I hover over one of these dots, I can see that exact information. So here for my 25-degree temperature, the first time I hit a 25-degree temperature at this location in 2001 was December 9th. Wow, that was really late. And so you can see this visually. As you go up and down the chart, here you can see on the left, on the y-axis, we're talking about dates. So if you're really high here at the top, this is September 1st. That's when you would have hit that first date. And if you go down in the graphic, that's a later date. So here for this particular example, you can see when I hovered over that dot, December 9th, that's when I hit that first 25-degree freeze date. Over on the right-hand side, just like with the maps, you can customize what you're looking at. If I want to look at spring instead of fall, if I want to only view 25 degrees, if I don't want to stack them all side by side, I can do that. If I don't want to look at this full period of record, I can grab this slider and slide it across and narrow that range. Say I only want to look at a decade. I can just look at a decade and see the data that way. So again, it's a really interesting way to view these data. People might say, well, why would you want to see side by side all of these different temperatures? Well, one thing that you'll see if you play around with this tool is there are not the same type or strength or direction of trends based on the temperature, right? So just using this example here, a 32-degree temperature is showing virtually no change over time here in Tippecanoe County, Indiana. When I look at my 40-degree temperature, there's trend in this temperature occurring later and later and later in the season. Okay, so different behavior in the trends you will find for different temperatures. And so that's why it's so interesting to look at them side by side. And again, I said you can click on any of these buttons at the top to get a different view for a tool. So let's look at freezes by decade. Did it go? There we go. So here's another way to view the data. Take notice here, I've changed locations just for demonstrations purposes. Now we're looking at the first fall 32-degree freeze for Portage County, Wisconsin. So that's in like South Central Wisconsin. And I picked this because they did have a very significant and strong trend in their 32-degree fall temperatures. If we look at it by decade, so what this is showing here on the left, 1950s, 1960s, 70s, 80s. So we're grouping all of the data points in that decade, and we're kind of putting them on this box and whisker so we can see what was the average for that decade, what were the extremes, and how does it stack up decade after decade. Ooh, sorry about that. So we can see here this dashed line, that's the average. And we can see how that dashed line, as we go over time, is very clearly shifting. Some locations, it's not like that, right? And so the trends that we're seeing, they vary by location. They vary by temperature. They vary by spring and fall. And that's why this tool is so essential, because just to say, oh yeah, our springs are coming earlier and our falls are coming later, that's not the case, right? It's really location dependent. And it can be very dependent on the temperature that you pick. And it can be dependent on whether or not you're looking at spring or fall. So again, we're just looking for interesting ways to quickly and easily visualize the data to be helpful. If we click on growing season, now you can start to see, and again, I changed location here. Now we're looking at Vinton County, Ohio, just to give us a variety of examples. As we move across on the bottom, we're going through time. So this first bar here is 1950, and this last bar here is in, 2020, what does that say? Sorry, I have a bar in my way that I can't see what my graph is saying. 2023, there we go. And so each green bar is showing you the number of days between the last freeze in the spring and the first freeze in the fall. So if we look here, the date is earlier in the calendar year at the top, later in the calendar year at the bottom, okay? So then we can stack them up year after year and see how much variation do I have in the length of my growing season. Is my growing season getting longer? It is. Is it being driven by spring starting earlier or fall kicking in later, or maybe a combination of both? And so this graphic is a really interesting way to be able to visualize all of that information about spring and fall and trends kind of all in one place. Now, if you're interested in tabular data or other kind of summary statistics, we have those as well. We're not going to go through those here in this demonstration, but hopefully this has given you a pretty good flavor of the variety of ways that this tool lets you quickly and easily look at trends in freeze dates and the length of the growing season. Whew, all right, we're gonna just keep moving right along. And let's talk about a new topic. All right, let's shift gears here. I said I had 3 tools. Maybe I didn't tell you. I was just gonna go through 3 tools. So now let's go to the second one that I wanted to talk about. And this is chilling hours. So if any of you work in perennial fruit and nut crops, this is a very, very familiar topic to you. If you don't work in that space, maybe this is a little bit more unfamiliar to you. But the gist of it is that when a plant is dormant, like in the cold season, like what's supposed to be happening outside right now, when it's the cold season and plants are dormant, they have to go through a chilling period or a resting period in order to ready themselves for the next growing season. And so it's during this period where that crop, that nut or fruit, it's developing its buds, it's getting ready, right? It's preparing itself. Different plants and even different species of different plants or different varieties of different species, they have their own unique range of what is an optimal chilling threshold. Okay, so typically it's low 30s to mid 40s, but it can change. And so they need a specific amount of time sitting at those hours to ready themselves. If you don't get enough, right? If you don't get enough chilling, you might have poor bud development. You could have delayed growth. You could have an inability to break dormancy. If you accumulate these chilling hours, as we call them, that if you have that chilling period happen really, really rapidly, and then you suddenly get a warm spell that breaks you out of dormancy, you could be less susceptible to frost damage, which could have a pretty big impact on your yields. That happened to our friends in Western New York and Eastern Ontario last May, where they had a really warm spring. They accumulated those chilling hours, things broke dormancy, and then they had a really severe freeze in May, and it really had a big impact on yields. So this kind of thing happens quite often. And if you have too much temperature fluctuation going in and out and in and out across these chilling periods, really cold to really warm, you could actually cause some resetting of your chilling requirements. You could have erratic blooms. You could have some reduced fruit quality. It's not as well quantified of what that too much temperature fluctuation means, but it's something to keep an eye on. So with all of that in mind, we, for a long time, have provided maps that show, that let you track how many chilling units you've accumulated throughout the cold season. And so when I say chilling unit, I'm talking about, or chilling hour, for every hour that on this map you spend between 35 degrees and 45 degrees Fahrenheit, that's one chilling unit. And our products will either start September 1st or October 1st, and it just checks every day and it adds it up. So here, these maps were last updated on February 20th. And so right here where I'm located in West Lafayette, Indiana, we've accumulated somewhere between 1,000 and 1,200 chilling hours. So that means over that time frame, there have been between 1,000 and 1,200 hours where the temperature was between 35 and 45 degrees. If we swap over to this right-hand map, this is giving you a departure from normal. So this is telling you where you are right now in the season. How does that compare to the past? Are you ahead of schedule or are you behind schedule? Have you gotten more than you would have usually gotten based on that average? And here that average goes from 1986 to 2015. That's the period of time that we sort of averaged together for a baseline. And so if we look here again in West Lafayette, Indiana, we see we're about 200 to 400 chilling units ahead of schedule, right? And so that could mean that, you know, certain plants have reached their threshold quicker. That could mean something else, right? So whatever you might need it for to know what you're dealing with compared to the historical average, that's how you can use these two maps together. And I don't have an image of this, but when you're on this tool and you click on the map, it does zoom you in. So you can get a little bit finer picture of this. Now we have some limitations here. Like I said, all plants and all varieties within different plant species will have their own unique requirement of what is considered an optimal chilling hour. And there might be a certain time of the growing season or the dormancy season that interests you. But for these maps, you don't get to pick that. You're stuck between 35 and 45, and you don't get to pick your start date. You have October 1st or you have September 1st, and it's just going to chug along. So we were hearing a lot of feedback that people needed more control. They needed more functionality. And so we partnered with the USDA Midwest Climate Hub and also got some funding through NOAA, through our Regional Climate Center contract, to put together a custom chilling tool. And so this lets you track that chilling accumulation, but for customized time periods and temperature thresholds. So right now it's a pretty simplistic tool. I should say simplistic to view. It is processing so much data on the fly to let you pick what is your lower temperature bound, what is your upper temperature bound, what is your start date, and what is your end date. So you have to keep it within a 12-month period starting July 1st to June 30th. So we use not a calendar year count, right? We're trying to capture the cold season. But say you didn't want to start counting your chilling hours until January 1st. And so you wanted to go from January 1st to February 25th. You can do that with this tool. Or here, I bumped it down 32 degrees instead of 35 degrees. I can do that here. And then with just like our other tools, as you hover your mouse over the different points, you'll get a little pop-up that tells you what the chilling hour accumulation has been for your selected range and your selected dates. And this is available based on hourly station data across the entire US. So I'm just showing the Midwest here, but if you live in the Southeast, if you live in the Northeast, if you live in the Central US, this tool is available to you. So this just launched about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago. We are still working on this. We want to be able to give you a time series. We want you to be able to click that dot and see the pattern of that accumulation over the last season. So that's in the works right now. And we also want you to be able to see the departure from normal, like, put it into that climatological perspective. Is 534 chilling units ahead of schedule? Is it on the low end? What does it mean, right? So those are our next two improvements we're going to be making to this tool. But again, it's a lot of data we're processing because we're letting you pick what is that temperature range, what is that time period. And so we have some computational hurdles to jump over, but I'm hopeful that we'll have those time series charts and those departure from average charts here as we go into the next chilling hour season. All right, one more tool, and then we're going to wrap it up and leave some time for questions. So the last tool that I want to talk about is our soil temperature climatology. I think this is a tool that people will find very useful for this time of year. This is not a real-time monitoring tool. It does not have a component of seeing what's happening in the current season. Rather, this is a historical climatology that uses 30-year historical data, bias corrected from a regional reanalysis model. That's just saying, again, we don't want to use stations because they're few and far between, right? So we're going to have large areas of the US that we cannot get soil temperature data for reliably. Or if we do, they don't go back very far in time. So we don't have enough data to give you that climatological 30-year average. So we did a little bit of research and we found a data set that we thought had a really good performance. And we made it into this easy to use tool that really lets you, right now you can say, all right, I want to know the date when my soils typically would warm above, say, 50 degrees and stay there for the season. Or I want to know when my soils would cool down below 50 degrees and stay there for the season, right? We get these questions over and over, especially when we get around planting time and people want to know, what should I expect? Roughly when will my soils be warm enough to stick something in the ground? Or if they're doing some cool season nitrogen application, which I know is not necessarily something that we have going on widespread, but some people are doing it. And we want people to know climatologically, when is it a safer or less risky time to do certain things? So anyway, this is what that tool does right now. You can go in, you can select your temperature of interest. It updates the map, and then you can just hover over it like you see here in this image to get a little pop-up that shows you on average and then those early and late dates for that 30-year period. Again, we're working on some improvements. We want to be able to have the user select a date. So like think of this in reverse, right? I want to know on June 25th, what is the average temperature in the soil across the region? I want to be able to click on it and see a time series throughout the year so I can kind of see that seasonal pattern of temperatures warming and cooling throughout the year. So those are two updates that we're working on that we're hopeful will be out before we go into the fall. So we're working on that this summer. I will also say there's a lot more to learn about the nuts and bolts of this tool, and we will be hosting a webinar on this product in mid-March. Stay tuned for the exact date, but if you sign up for our newsletter, that would be a great way, or just send me an email if you're interested in this webinar, and I can make sure to send you that date once we have it firmed up. All right, so we've gone through the 3 products. Like I said, we have so many products on our website. This is just an overwhelming snapshot of what some of those might be. I encourage you to go to our site, check out our heat index climatologies, go look at our egg climate tools. We have stress degree day tools when you want to look at the, high temperature impact on corn in the summer. So many different products that you can explore on our site. And we have a lot going on this upcoming year. I've already mentioned that we're working on some tool updates. We are also doing a complete redesign of the back end of our Climate, which is sort of our flagship self-service data product. That'll be ready later this year. You as the user might not notice very much change in the types of functions that you can do, but it will have a different look and feel. And it does give us on the back end a lot more flexibility and stability to add new products based on all the feedback we've been getting from people. We have a couple of new tools that are in development that I didn't show you today. We have one where we're working on weed emergence and trying to do some early weed emergence scouting indicators. We have a climate extremes tool that we used to have that sort of became outdated that we're retooling so that people can in real time see, like on a day like today, I have a lot of questions saying, hey, is this going to be a record? And by how much is it breaking that record? Well, we have a tool in development so that you don't have to call me. You can just do it yourself. Because again, this is your data. You should have easy access to it. And that's what we're aiming to do. And then we're also going to be expanding more on our outreach and engagement opportunities, like the webinar that we're doing next month, as well as continuing to put out written resources and other information too. So again, I encourage you to stay connected, sign up for our newsletter. You can go to that URL that's on the page. You can hit the QR code with your phone right there to sign up. These will just go to your inbox. You can send me an email if you don't want to do this right now and you think about it later. But yeah, with that, I think we've gotten through everything. I'm going to leave it on this slide for just a moment. But yeah, Hans, if you're there, if you want to let me know if there are any questions or unmute people, I'm happy to go through whatever else people want to see. Thank you.
Well, I don't see any questions in the chat at the moment, but if you do have questions and you're out there, you can put them in the chat, or I have given the ability for everyone to unmute themselves. You can ask your question verbally as well. In the meantime, I'm going to pop the poll up. The poll is up. Still don't see any questions at the moment. Let me ask this as a way to lead off. In your personal opinion, money's no option, resources are no option, but you have to pick a tool that you would love to see on the MRCC site. What's the one that you would love to see, or of those that exist, what's your favorite?
That's a great question.
That could be a question for the attendees, but that's definitely a question for you, Melissa.
Oh, well, I was hoping somebody else would answer. Oh man. It's hard to pick a favorite. As a parent, I'm always like, oh, people say, oh, you don't have favorites. Oh, everybody has a favorite kid, right? I would say right now, my favorite, I love our snowfall climatology toolbox. I might have talked about this a couple of years ago. It might have just been in the early stages of development. I would love to see us do something like that for other variables. The snowfall climatology toolbox is an interesting way to visualize snowfall data, which is a kind of a tricky variable to deal with. And there's a lot of ways to slice and dice it, right? Like, what's my extreme? What's my extreme over multiple days? When was it my first snow, my last snow in a certain month, right? You can kind of take that concept and apply it to other variables, like dew points or humidity or 90-degree days or something like that. So I think that tool is pretty versatile. I think it has a lot of potential. I don't know if anybody else loves it like I do, but maybe that's just because, helped make it. But yeah, I'd love to hear what other people think. There's so many so many things that can be done if money and resources were of no option. You've really opened up the universe. It's too much.
We've got one suggestion in the chat or question actually. Does the MRCC have any models of future trends that could be used for long-term planning?
That's an excellent question. So we in our shop do not do future climate modeling, but there are a ton of groups that do, and we have access to all of their information. So we used to have a climate trends tool that did display some prominent variables, temperature, precipitation, a few other variables, sort of in an easy use fashion and side by side with the historical trends. Unfortunately, that tool got outdated, so I had our team take it down when we moved it here to MRCC, to Purdue. But certainly we have the capability of doing that. And I think you're right, I always thought that would be helpful to see side by side with the historical data. So no, we're not personally doing any of that, but we have access to it, and I would love to integrate that into some of our tools.
All right. Thanks, Melissa. I don't see anything else in the chat. Does anybody want to unmute and ask a question? This is last call on the poll. I'm going to shut it down in 15 seconds. All right. Well, let's give some time back to everyone and wrap this up. Melissa, thanks again. I think you did such an excellent job with the presentation that you answered all the questions during it.
Always my goal.
Yep. There you go. Thanks again for participating, everybody. Look forward to seeing you again in 2 months. We've got our speakers for the year figured out, but I can't remember off the top of my head who next month will be. But they'll be entertaining, exciting, and definitely worth stopping in. Have a great rest of your day.